Last weekend saw one of the busiest of the summer for motorsports, and to begin our review, here's Bob.
Well, Larry, after the last two IndyCar road races, the March owners must be wondering if they have the right chassis. Mario Andretti in one of the two Lolas was on the pole with Marcher Bobby Rahal alongside. Although Rahal got the jump on Mario at the start, Andretti sets up Bobby for an inside move in turn 5, passes and takes the lead. Andretti held the lead until his first pit stop on lap 28. Then it was Rahal, who won his first IndyCar race on this track 2 years ago, who took the lead and dominated laps 28 through 82. Canadian Jacques Villeneuve drove a great race in his new 1984 March. At one point, it was one of, if not the, fastest cars on the track. But during a pit stop, a front tire is not seated properly. Villeneuve drives his three-wheeler to the pits, but manages to go back out and finish 9th. Teo Fabi, in what could be his last IndyCar race, was running 3rd at one time, but broke a shock and spun twice. Nevertheless, he wound up 13th. Andretti is pursuing and, in fact, catching Rahal until lap 50. The Budweiser Lola is finished with ignition problems. For the rest of the race, it was Rahal and the driver of the other Lola, Danny Sullivan. When Andretti left the race, Rahal had a 10-second lead on Sullivan, but that lead diminished as both worked traffic. Nevertheless, Rahal looked strongest, and it appeared as if Sullivan would have to be a bridesmaid again, just like the previous week at the Meadowlands. Then suddenly on lap 83, the 7-11 March expires. Louisville, Kentucky's Danny Sullivan, last year a Formula One regular, inherits the lead and goes on to win his first IndyCar race. Chip Ganassi from Pittsburgh had his best finish ever in an IndyCar. Despite a spin earlier in the event, Chip winds up in 2nd position. And Michael Andretti, coming off a terrific accident at the Meadowlands, was 3rd. Our Gary Lee talked with Danny Sullivan in Victory Lane.
A cold towel around the neck, some ice water. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was a long, tough race, and I was lucky to have a couple of breaks, and I got to thank my crew for the good job they did, and Domino's Pizza for all the backing.
You had a rabbit to chase out there in Bobby Rahal. Your thoughts when he went off the course?
Well, I had a rabbit in Mario first. I thought he was leading, and then when, Bobby, I saw that he was in the lead, and I tried to catch him, and he was real tough, and I don't know if I would have made it at the end, but luck was on us today, and I'm sorry for Bobby and all his team.
The current kart point standings show Tom Sneva was still a 20-point lead on Rick Mears. 3rd is Michael Andretti with a 3-point edge on Father Mario and Jeff Brabham.
More from Cleveland. Round 6, Robert Bosch Super Vs. Going in, the score was Canada 2, US 2, Holland 1, but Europe was about to tie the score. The triumvirate started up front. Canada's Ludwig Heimrath outshifted and outslid, wrestling away the initial lead. Ari Leyendijk in the Provimi VL Blue had led the parade of 12 that broke Ed Pimm's old track record, but Ludwig passed him on lap 1. Then Chip Robinson, Team USA, not to be out-publicized, outskated the others in the trio, and he took the lead in his black and red 4. This was beginning to look like great fun. Within 3 laps, each of the big 3 had already led, and at least one time. Then Robinson calmed it down. Breathing room. Everybody began to worry. Remember, Chip had knocked him dead last week. However, lap 7 of 25, the Dutchman flares up again, and suddenly Leyendijk is on the point once more. But this time, he's assertive, and he's headed for checker. Hollywood movie crewman Ted Trappist was moving until he banged wheels, lapping John Schieser. John spun out of the way, but the wing is cutting into Ted's left front tire. Look at what happened on the very next turn. It's a nasty one. Then along comes innocent Tommy Grunna, no warning, and the debris collects the American-made Venture chassis, blasting a tire out toward the spectators, but no injuries. Ludwig's miserable luck continued. He dropped out late, but Robinson held on to 2nd, followed by Peter Moody, Roger Penske, and Dominic Dobson. The results leave Heimrath far behind in points, with Leyendijk and Robinson essentially tied.
Headed back to Europe after 3 races on the North American continent. The final one was last Sunday in Dallas. The field was comprised of 25 cars, but as they lined up for the start, 4th fastest qualifier René Arnoux was missing. His engine didn't fire for the pace lap, and he failed to catch the field before the light turned green. When it did, the front row Lotuses took off. Mansell leads, then DeAngelis, Warwick, Senna, Lauda, Prost, Rosberg, Arnoux, and Tambay. First car out of the race, the Ligier of Frenchman Francois Hainaut, who encounters the tire wall and damages the suspension. He scampers away. With Mansell leading, Derek Warwick passes DeAngelis for second and now begins to pursue Mansell. But Derek tries a little too hard, into the tires at the hairpin. It's all over for Warwick. By mid-race, the thermometer registered over 100 degrees, but cool KK Rosberg, who was wearing a water-cooled suit, passes Mansell and moves into the lead. Lauda is third as DeAngelis and Arnoux battle for fourth. Not to be outdone by President Reagan's visit to Daytona, former President Jimmy Carter looks on as Mansell pits for fresh rubber and falls behind. Alain Prost, a winner 3 times this year, looks like he might make it 4. He takes the lead from Rosberg and holds it until just 10 laps to go when he hits a concrete barrier, breaks a tire rim, and parks his McLaren behind the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto, who had a similar fate. That gives Rosberg his first Formula One victory since Monaco last year. But the drama wasn't over. Mansell runs out of fuel only a few feet from the finish line. Nigel climbs from the car and begins to push it in the sweltering heat, but collapses. He does manage to finish 6th and pick up 1 World Championship point. The finish, Rosberg first, René Arnoux is second, Elio DeAngelis third, Jacques Lafitte fourth, and Piercarlo Ghinzani with his first points, 5th. The editor of National Speed Sport News, Chris Economaki, sees the possibility of auto racing becoming the #1 spectator sport this year.
Thanks, Bob. When the Daytona 500 had its biggest crowd for its February 500, followed by record-breaking attendances at Atlanta in March, for the Phoenix IndyCar race in April, and at the Indianapolis 500, we knew then that 1984 was going to be big at the box office for automobile racing. But the events of the past week have been absolutely staggering. It started at Daytona on the 4th of July, when 80,000 fans were in the stands at 10 o'clock in the morning in hopes that Richard Petty could win his 200th victory. President Reagan was part of that group. On Saturday, in Colorado at the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, a huge spectator turnout watched that event, and in Upper New York State, the Watkins Glen Road Course reopened after a 4-year layoff to tremendous crowds for the first of its 2-day meeting. At Cleveland on Sunday, the Indy cars played to over 50,000 people, and Saturday's IROC crowd wasn't bad either. But the big story of the week is Dallas, which held its first Grand Prix on Sunday. It was a 3-day weekend of racing with a thermometer near 100 degrees every day. 35,000 people bought tickets on Friday, a work day. 58,000 were there Saturday, and for the Grand Prix on Sunday, the attendance was 90,000 at fancy ticket prices, and these are police figures. Even the short tracks got into the act. Up in Oxford Plains, Maine, a town with a population of 5,000, the Oxford 250 was run Sunday night, and a record-breaking spectator turnout of 18,000 showed up for a NASCAR North Stock Car race. So it looks like motorsports in general, and auto racing in particular, in 1984 is on a roll.
Thanks, Chris. The 62nd annual Pikes Peak Race to the Clouds produced 2 new track records and its first ever female winner. Michelle Moulton drove her factory Audi Sport up the mountain, winning the fame race and breaking John Buffum's 1982 track record by 10 seconds. Audi had rented the mountain road on the previous Sunday for $6,500 to help Michelle learn her way to the top. Obviously, it worked. As you can see, there isn't much of a margin for error here. If you make a mistake, you could end up in downtown Colorado Springs below. The Audi Sport is a special short wheelbase version of the Quattro. Only 200 were built in Europe to compete in the World Pro Rally circuit. The engine, a special 5-cylinder, 20-valve, 420 horsepower race engine. Michelle and her co-driver, Fabrice Pons, finished ahead of Mazda's Rod Millen. Third place Martin Schunke, whose Ford was also a favorite, ran 8 miles with a flat right front tire that may have cost him the victory. Al Unser Jr.'s open wheel record stood as 39-year-old Bill Brister took his second open wheel win in a Coyote Chevy over Butch Hardman, who drove an upright Sprinter. 51-year-old and 3-time winner Ted Fultz was third in the open wheel division. Larry Karn set a new stock car track record, beating Leonard Vaucholtz, T-Bird, and Roger Mears in a Camaro. It was Karn's second stock car win. hard they tried, you just can't build 12 cars equally. Close, but not exactly equal. And after 2 International Race of Champions events, the Rose car is apparently hot pink instead, and proving the theory that 1 or 2 are always going to be better. With the inverted points start, Tom Sneva is outside pole. His draw, the winning number 3 Camaro from MIS. NASCAR's Cale Yarborough crashed in race 1. He's on the pole here. At the green, Sneva proved that pink is still hot, immediately taking the lead. Cale drove a great race, continually dogging Tom. Emerson Fittipaldi gridded 5th in the medium blue 7, worked his way around fellow road racers Jackie Ickx and Derek Bell, and was in a position to challenge when a left rear went flat. By lap 10, all the pylons marking some turns were already down, perhaps impatience showing with the evenly matched horsepowers. Spinners included Danny Angayas on 2 successive laps, Johnny Rutherford, Dale Earnhardt, and late in the race, Darrell Waltrip. By lap 20, Hardy Cale was pressuring Texaco Tom, particularly after the long backstretch, but the Rosemobile just couldn't be passed until a tire went down just 5 laps from the end. Yarborough won easily. White, by the way, was 9th on the high banks with Jackie Ickx last race. Cale was trailed by the airless Derek Bell. His Cream 4 is now the number 1 points car. 3rd was Gordy Johncock from 10th. 4th, Benny Parsons from 11th. Halfway, top 4, and how about this, stock car fans? Bonnet, Parsons, Johncock, and Yarborough.
A couple of drivers who competed in Cleveland last weekend also raced and, in fact, won in New York. The story from Jim Roller.
Al Holbert of Warrington, Pennsylvania, and England's Derek Bell teamed with Californian Jim Adams to win the $130,000 Camel Continental in Watkins Glen, New York this weekend. The race marked the return of professional racing to the 3.37-mile Glen circuit after a 3-year absence. Bell, Holbert, and Adams outlasted a challenge from the Florida team of Bill Whittington and Randy Lanier, the current Camel GT Series point leader. Whittington and Lanier led at the end of the first of 2 3-hour heats that made up the 2-day 6-hour endurance test. They then waged a war with the Bell, Holbert, and Adams Porsche in the second heat before transmission problems knocked their Chevrolet-powered March racer out of the contest. That left the number 14 Porsche with a 4-lap lead over the field. In the late stages, Bell cruised home, giving its team its 2nd straight win by a whopping 3 laps. The victors averaged over 108 miles per hour and covered 655 miles in the 6-hour test, and afterward, Bell said that the late going was as easy as it looked.
I just didn't want to make a mistake or get caught in anybody else's spins or anything. Even poor old Bob Aikens spun on the last lap and nearly had me, so... But, you know, it was a very easy last bit, but I think the first hour made up for the public that came to watch it. I think they deserved a good race, and I think the first hour provided them with it.
The weekend's Champion Spark Plug Challenge feature saw Cal Shoket take his 2nd victory of the season in his Dodge Daytona. Shoket of Trussville, Alabama, defeated Duluth, Minnesota's Tommy Archer by 15 seconds. Craig Carter took a popular hometown victory in the weekend's Kelly American Challenge race. Born in nearby Cortland, New York, this was Carter's first professional win at his home track. He defeated Tommy Wrigley in Florida. The Camel GT stars will now take 2 weeks off before heading west to Portland, Oregon for their next race meeting on Sunday, the 29th of July. Reporting from Watkins Glen, New York, this is Jim Roller.
Round 2 of the CRC Can-Am Series was hot as a Texas cookout on and off the track. The fans sought shade as Michael Rowe barbecued the field for his 2nd win in as many races, again from the pole position. Rowe jumped into the lead at the start, was followed by Fangio, Campbell, Crawford, and Monk. Rowe cruised in the lead for the first 13 laps, but then Juan Manuel Fangio, nephew and namesake of the former world champion in his 2-liter Ralt, who was running 2nd, began to feel the pressure from Scotsman Jim Crawford in 3rd. But, oh, Crawford scrapes the wall without damage. Crawford got by Fangio and caught leader Rowe and took the lead for 7 laps. Then Fangio took the lead for 3 laps before giving it back to Rowe for the remainder of the 50-lap race. The cars pounded the track into submission and the pavement broke up, causing cars to spin and tangle with the walls. The pace car came out 3 times. The high temperatures caused some of the cars to overheat, and so did the wrecker as it removed a wall banger and partially blocked the track. Rowe, driving with torn ligaments in his left leg, beat Crawford to the line by 8.2 seconds and won $24,000. Fangio finished 3rd overall and 1st in the 2-liter class. 4th was Charles Monk. 5th was Texan Kim Campbell, who also was 2nd in the 2-liter class. Rowe's win stretched his point lead to 8 over Crawford.
for its 4th meet of the season. Don the Snake Prudhomme won his Pro Funny Car semi-final against Dale Poldy, but almost did not make it to the finals. His chute failed to open properly after this run, and the Snake had to bounce to a stop in the rough dirt off the end. After a push back to the pits, a good shower, and some gaffer's tape, Don was back at the line. The Californian has never won an IHRA race, and he was up against a tough one. Kenny Bernstein is in the far lane, and he's on a spare motor. But when the tree flashed, both Kenny and the extra Ford block were up to the task. 5.8 seconds, 258 miles per hour. His first IHRA victory this year. He's also won an NHRA. It's been a tough month for lady drag racers. In an early round, Della Woods experienced an oil fire in a losing effort but was assisted out uninjured. Texan Lee Shepard brought his unblemished pro stock record and breezed into the finals. Lee's Chevy, far lane, Ricky Smith's Ford, near lane, both stand up at the line and only half a second separate them at the traps, but Shepard's string is intact at 186 miles per hour. So far, only Warren Johnson in NHRA has challenged Lee's supremacy.
Wisconsin's Jim Sauter won the ASA 200-miler at State Fair Park in Milwaukee or West Allis, Wisconsin last Sunday. Rusty Wallace led most of the early going with Sauter, Mike Eddy, and Alan Kowicki among the followers. The pit still may have been a little damp from the rain shower when Wallace came in for a stop or slide and go penalty for passing under yellow. The last of the 16 caution flags was brought about by a 5-car pileup in turn 1 with just 3 laps to go. When the green comes out again, Sauter pulls away for the victory. Kowicki was second, Mike Eddy passed Bob Sineker on the last lap for third, and Rusty Wallace wound up fifth.
The AMA National Points Championship race is a tight one, and the only thing that happened at St. Louis was it became tighter. Harley's Randy Goss, plate number 1, trailed Ricky Graham, number 3, by 19 points before the green. This would be a 25-lapper where points leader Graham would be beaten by 3 others in the top 5 standings. Bubba Schobert bolted great, but before the first circuit was over, Goss had already overhauled him. After 4 quick laps, Goss had a nice lead. Then came Scott Parker, Doug Chandler, Graham, and a slipping Schobert. Honda has had a great year. Watch California's Doug Chandler move up and pass Michigan's Scott Parker for the runner-up spot. Race is half over. With 5 to go, Chandler got close, but not enough. Goss is pacing himself. Defending champ Randy Goss was an excited winner. His second win inches him to just 9 markers behind Graham. Scott Parker is just 20 behind, and 1 win is worth 20 points. The season is exactly halfway.
And the Atlas Van Line's turbine-powered unlimited hydroplane was nearly flawless at Madison, Indiana last weekend. The blue and white turbine driven by Chip Hanauer was not ready for the first 2 races this year, and mechanical problems kept it out of the championship round at Evansville the previous week. Miss Budweiser led coming out of the second turn on the first lap here in Madison, but Atlas on the inside passed Bud on the Kentucky side of the river, and the Blue Blaster never looked back. The Tostiasi almost caught Miss Bud in the battle for second, but driver Steve Reynolds had to back off when his turbine boat began to overheat. A new and lighter Miss Bud is being built, but isn't expected to be ready until the September 16th race at San Diego. The new Bud will have a supercharged piston engine. Hanauer took the checkered flag first in his 8th race at Madison. Previously, his boats have experienced all kinds of problems, from exploding to sinking. Miss Atlas set 1 lap, heat, and championship round records on the Ohio and picked up an $18,000 first-place check.
Next week on Speed Week, we'll report on the NASCAR race at Nashville and pay tribute to the king, Richard Petty.
Plus, we should know who will replace Teo Fabi in the Skoal Bandit IndyCar. I'm Bob Jenkins.
And I'm Larry Newber. We'll see you next week. Now here's more of the Race to the Clouds from Pikes Peak.
SpeedWeek has been brought to you by B.F. Goodrich TA High-Tech Radials. We make cars perform.